Good afternoon, Aristo.
Good morning, Ron. I thought you were going to say, how are you? It's a crazy day for me as well.
I'm feeling relieved, actually.
I'll tell you one thing. I really like the resonance of today's message, of your video today. That's pretty much how my rage or outrage expresses. It's not really a calmness, but the passion comes through and affects people. And it affects, people don't have an excuse to shut down. It's one thing to give them that oomph, out there and really shake up their insides. And then you have this other kind of expression of outrage. It's not quite calm, but it comes through and it roots inside of them to really give them the message on a visceral level without them having any excuse to shut down or feel defensive about it. So I believe it really came through because it's a kind of message that resonates with me, and it's something that I've been feeling I wanted to express as well, on your site. It's the message that I feel needs to get through to people who see themselves of the New Age persuasion especially.
Well, they try to convince everybody that they're right and the other people are wrong. And I mean, I'm seeing it come through from a lot of people that are my friends. And, it has been a real challenge for me. I mean, my friend put it in my face and she says, everybody's trying to show you, Ron, what you need to do, and you're not getting the message. It's like they're manipulating me. And I'm not into manipulation, and so just letting go was a relief for me. In any case, what topic would you like to cover today? I mean, I don't necessarily want to dwell on that issue. And as far as my mood in today's video, or the attitude or whatever, it's not going to draw 3,000 views like the one did on the summer solstice.
Oh, that's people like that kind of thing too, But my personal, because on the summer solstice, my insides were going through. It was like an egg beater, and a lot of people might think, "Oh, how could he make me feel so uncomfortable?" Well, it's like we need to be reminded of how uncomfortable it is on this planet right now, because unless we are reminded in a way that doesn't really hurt us, it's not going to hurt you to be psychologically uncomfortable. Come on, people. I mean, I think people are afraid so much and have bought into propaganda that they call spirituality, because it is propaganda. So
Yes,
let's
it is.
bring it in. I was going to talk, a bunch of things were coming to mind, but I wanted to express something about the. I've gotten into yoga. There's a fundamental work on yoga that was written at the time of Jesus Christ. And it basically, out of this came a lot of the teachings, if not all of them, are founded on this work. It's just 196 lines in Sanskrit, where basically somebody around the time of Jesus said, look, the oral traditions are being lost, the priests are taking over, the true teaching of spirituality, the methodology of it, the meaning of it. Let me just put this down in a few lines and pass it around. And of course, the priest took this, and somebody who's from the West, who has another viewpoint, actually wrote an analysis about this. She's been doing this yoga meditation for 40 years, and a lot of people will agree, but most indigenous Indian people disagree, or especially the yogis themselves. Basically, the priest took it and twisted it around just like they did Christianity, and turned it into the philosophy that has come to us after World War II, during the times of the Beatles, the Transcendental Meditation, all of these things. So this forced me to actually learn Sanskrit to the point that I could translate this work for myself from the original, and I have, and it's just done a lot for me and cemented the fact that we think that we know all of these spiritual teachings, but unless we really get into it, 90% of them are just crap. The Matrix has taken what we hold most dear and has prostituted it to high heaven, and we don't even know it. So the people...
And it creates the passivity, as I said in today's video.
Exactly. It's, even Karl Marx said it, the opiate of the people. And a lot of spiritual people are opium addicts. They just want their quick fix. And no addict is going to admit that. And they're going to go through withdrawal. And they're going to go crazy when they go through withdrawal. And they're going to make any excuse they can to convince you that it's your problem. Well, of course, it's all our problems. It's what we're experiencing. I wanted to express, you spoke about Gandhi. So when back in 1982, 83, when I went to college, I read about this one mystic that drew me, and I seriously had resisted mysticism because it was very, I was a physicist. I was pragmatic, and yeah. So, but this guy basically affirmed something without dropping the baby, without throwing away the baby in bathwater. Basically, that in physicality, that's where evolution occurs. That's where spiritual evolution occurs. It is a physical. You really don't distinguish in the end physical evolution from spiritual evolution. Now, this guy's name is popularly known as Sri Aurobindo. He was Aurobindo Ghosh or something like that, but he's well known. This is the guy that started the Indian Revolution before Gandhi. He was an Indian who was educated in Oxford University, and then around the age of 30 he went back to India, and he actively began speaking and getting people together for the revolution against the English. This occurred around the turn of the century, 1900. Around 1910 he was thrown in jail and had many of his spiritual realizations in a year he spent in prison because his brother bombed the English consulate or something like that, or they said he did. Eventually, his very spiritual nature had moved to the point that the judges just had to release him because of the energy that was going through. And then he said, look, there's the people, I'm leaving the revolution into the hands of others. I'm going to find the spiritual solution. And the fact and he opened up an ashram for people to come in, not to teach them to go do something, but to create a kind of laboratory of human experience to see, because he noticed this, and this occurred over time, that the more one person progresses spiritually, the more other people around him resist and start bringing up things that one person couldn't face on their own. I mean, our capacity to manifest and sustain energy, negative, positive, whatever, requires relationship in order to bring the full scope or spectrum of what we need to face to the surface. We can't just go in a cave and face it all there. This, no matter how well-meaning we are. Because this guy said, look, he had 5,000 people in the end of his ashram. He said that I can take 100 of you and go to the Himalayas and find a cave in Tibet. And we can reach heights you never imagined, because this guy was very, very accomplished in modern times. But he was also Oxford educated, so he had a prolific work in writing. And he was against Gandhi, because he said Gandhi is not facing the fact that this is a confrontation. And when you confront something, he believed more like the Bhagavad Gita, which presented the ideal of karma yoga, which said, look, this is like a war. It's not a conflict, and it's not violence as you know it in physical life, but the attitude of the warrior, but not the soldier. The attitude of somebody who's basically courageous and willing to face it, and doesn't just sit back, but moves head on and deals with it. That is what is required. And he said, forget about the warrior, we're revolutionaries. When you engage in spirituality, you are a revolutionary. You cannot be somebody who is aligned with the status quo when you know that the status quo is not enough. If you are not a revolutionary in the state of affairs that the world is today, you are not a spiritual person. Period.
I agree.
And this comes from spiritual people. But as you know, you're not familiar with this guy too much. The one person that brought it to my attention was the guy who wrote The Holographic Universe, Michael Talbot. He wrote a book called Mysticism and the New Physics before. So, physics, mysticism, wow, he put them both in one book. And he was just talking about this guy. So I found all his works, but my spirituality began and continued for a long time on that presence. Here's what this guy did in World War II, for example. Yogic abilities do give you a way to interact with the world and affect it. As long as you have a viable microcosm, not just in yourself, but around you, where you have relationships that mirror what's going on in the collective. And you can become aware of how that mirroring occurs. Now, with the internet and the people around us today, it's unavoidable. I mean, no matter how much I stay at home and meditate, I'm still going to go and relate to people. I don't have to have them in my bed or in my house or whatever, but even the internet connections, especially because we have a technological component in our society that's part of our karma. We can't avoid it. You know, it's part of the solution. It's not just a raw spiritual thing. It's part of the creativity. Our challenge is to harmonize it, not to reject it. So basically what this guy did was confront, you know, what he called the demon of the nations. Basically that these psychopaths all worship this form of glory and, you know, that he idolized as, not idolized, but represented as some kind of asura, called a demon basically, but he actually connected with Western occultists as well, which was something that Indians did not do so much. He was aware of the Western traditions, the fact that witches in England, for example, were doing rituals to sabotage the Germans. So this guy was saying, yeah, you see World War II going the way it is, notice how Hitler is making really stupid decisions. Guess who's behind that? Guess who's actually guiding Hitler to make all the wrong choices? It's the mystics. It is, and it, you know, somebody on the outside might say, well, you know, I don't see that. Well, of course not. Then it's a coincidence. Just as the mystic goes, hey, you know, I'm going to tell him to do this. Poof, he goes and does it. But the thing is that you have a certain scope of strategy and tactics that's occult in nature that can work for those who are into it. But you also have what you said, the way your soul manifests your reality. And in this manifestation, basically, in order to get to that, you don't rise up to the soul. You go down to the depths, and the soul is attracted. I mean, you can think of it this way. The higher self is tied to your head with a string, and it's of a constant length. The lower you go, the lower it comes. So basically, as soon as it comes close to the body experience, you're going to feel more and more intensity, but eventually what I'm experiencing is that the intensity is getting more and more, not so much comfortable, but I can deal with it, you know. It's something that, and the only way I realized that is that, well, 5 years ago, I would have flipped out now. 5 years ago, at this level of experience, I would not have been able to handle it. So, you know, and it's not just a memory, it's a visceral feeling sense of my body remembers exactly how much it could handle. So the nature of pain changes, the nature of the challenge changes. And you can go into a situation eventually where something that would have blown you away, you know, becomes no big deal. And then your own emotions that you feel are comfortable, the other person is going to be blown away by them, even though for you it's really a natural emotion. You are now blowing people away a lot more than you used to. And it's not going to get you more listeners, you know, but that's the whole thing. But it doesn't matter because the people that do stick with you have far greater resilience in terms of these issues than the ones that leave, and they resonate a step-down transformer of what you're emitting, for example, to those that are saying, I don't want to listen to this. The ones who don't want to listen to this are going to face it in their lives, period. You know, it's good that we express what we express. We have to. It's our honesty and stuff when we feel that we need to express it. It's part of what you might call the mechanism of karmic churning. But and within that dynamic, people cannot avoid facing themselves. So no matter what they say, no matter what we say, look, man, you know, nature is sick and tired of our crap. You know, we're sick and tired of our crap. The psychopaths are you know, sick and tired of their own crap, but they're locked in it. Spiritual people are not much different than the psychopaths in that sense. They're also locked in their thing.
Well, they're trying to play God and control everybody else, is what the way that I see it. That's the similarity between this escapism, spirituality, and psychopathic uh, physicality manifestation. Each is trying to play God without embracing their own humanity.
Exactly. And people need to understand, man, if you don't admit to it, then you're not, if you admit to it, you're not in denial. Denial is where you're completely resisting and saying, no, that's not the case. So if you pinpoint that one thing that positivist, polarized, spiritual bypass type people, what that they don't want to admit, the one button that they completely freak out about, or basically that makes them the most uncomfortable is that you people think you're all good. You're just as manipulative as the psychopaths on a whole other level. You're just not physically hurting anybody, but the psychopaths get away with what they're doing because of you. You know.
That's how I see it, and it's what infuriates me sometimes when I think about it.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, I used to be in occult sites where I met some psychopaths on a smaller scale, petty tyrants, people who use this kind of thing in order to, really, really dark and sick types that basically are not, your high level so-called. But I can see the polarity, I can feel the polarity with the New Agers. And I felt that, look, within this group of crazies, there were a lot of people that didn't want to be like that. They just got caught up in the general mean. Within the group of New Agers, there's a lot of people who are seeing it differently. There's a lot of people that have refused to become spiritual because of these polarities. A lot of people have refused to give new technologies because of the psychopaths. A lot of people have refused to get into the geopolitical situation because they're afraid of the psychopaths. And a lot of people have refused to get into the spiritual situation because they're sick of the prevalent meme over there. So it's time to change the meme, not by repressing the old meme, but by stopping to feed it those who really feel in their hearts that they're sick and tired of that crap and can call it crap, because you don't have to condemn somebody by condemning, by rejecting what they do and what they believe. You say, look, man, to what we have a 10% resonance, but the rest is dissonance, and I'm going to, address that dissonance dynamic. I don't see eye to eye with you on this, and it's not a matter of being on the same page and being on different pages. This is a matter of your book is slamming down the situation. It's causing a lot of damage. And I also urge people to look into their own hearts, because spiritual people have one thing different than psychopaths. They are at least officially willing to look at the truth. That's what they keep saying. So I'm calling you on the carpet every time, and it's not like judge you and judge me and you don't get it and I don't get it. It's like, look, man, the only place we really need to get it is where our feet are in common, on the ground. That's where we need to get it. I can tell you a crap load of things about the planes and the thises and the that's in any way you want, from physics to poetry to whatever. It doesn't matter. That's not going to go away. That's always there. This is where we are here. This is where we need to get it. That's why when I was speaking about the 5 dimensions of time, it's because it's a popular term on the one hand, and on the second hand, navigating reality is what, the situation is. Maybe technically we don't create it from scratch or whatever the case, but we do navigate it. And we have a choice of where we go. And we can expand our limits. And, even in your personal situation, you notice a progression. And from whatever the first case was, and the second case, maybe 3 times the charm, maybe not. It doesn't matter. Each time you are filtering out your misconceptions. What you thought you wanted is being revealed as what you really don't want, because there's no fence sitting anymore, period. The fence, we need to tear it down. To be balanced, to be at the midpoint, to be at the true central point, we need to tear down the goddamn fence and wipe out the borders that distinguish one polarity from another. That's what the psychopaths are afraid of. That's what the spiritual people are afraid of. Because the spiritual person is very much afraid of seeing the psychopath in themselves. Your emotional expression shows that, and all of the crap that you've gone through, even in the relationship scenario, has shown. Oh, look at my ideal. I don't care. I went through soulmate stuff myself and realized, oh, my ideals have been betrayed. Love does not conquer all. Oh, she's not my soulmate. It's like, these are just words. Forget about it, If we're truly navigating our reality, I'm navigating myself to my soulmate, and I'm going through a bunch of terrain that's oh wow, a milestone. My soulmate is there, or beyond there, or whatever. But until I get there and understand what that milestone is, I keep confusing it with a horizon. It's completely natural. You know, it doesn't matter. I've had a friend who's had 10 soulmates before he found the woman he's with right now that's completely, and by the time he's with her, he's now able to deal with all of the issues that come up, because the paradox is that the issues are going to come up with your soulmate more than anybody else, because there is nothing hiding anything. You know, if it's too good to be true, then something's, you know, not being addressed. We have too much to deal with to sugarcoat anything, and sugar is very bad for you these days. I mean, it's the one thing that causes health problems, premature aging, everything. And this is a metaphor as well as a medical fact. So, you know, everything, the passion that you've gone through, it doesn't matter. I say keep it up, because, you know, the people who are spiritual, and yes, they do have, I've been reading about, for example, Bill Ballard's site, and the guy goes around and does a lot of rituals, and that's well and good, with people who are like-minded, and it's fine. You people are a minority, you know. Get together. You people who truly, truly believe in this stuff, at least the guy's doing something. I'm more of an occult perspective, and, you know, engaged in my own stuff with people I know as well, and from that perspective, I don't try to convert people into that perspective. I will express a few things about it, because I'm like, look, if you can't physically get out and do something because it's too dangerous, you can prepare yourself to do so through esoteric means. And you can affect reality through esoteric means, but you need to practice. It's like any muscle, it needs to be exercised. You may not be able to affect reality, but I've seen myself affect reality a hell of a lot more than I used to. And I'm getting to know the nuances of how this is done, and more importantly, what faces it and keeps it from being done. It's not just some nebulous, oh, what is keeping me? No, I know it's that, and the other. In terms of energies, in terms of a language that it's very difficult to express in matrix dictionary terms, because those dictionary terms have been wiped out. You know, we need to learn that again, to get into and not believe in ourselves, but apply ourselves. So yeah, the psychopaths have a role to play, because without them, you know, if you just had spiritual people, we'd all fall asleep and that'd be it. Nothing would get done. It's just that we're reclaiming ourselves, and it is a process, and we're all learning about it. And more importantly, we're learning what we really want. Because what we thought we want, you know, is most of it's programming. And it takes guts to delete the programming and it takes wisdom to delete the programming without denying your feelings and yourself and your own dark light, all the sides. I apologize for the extended rant today, but
nothing to apologize for. I appreciated it, and I'm sure others will too.
Okay, but more or less, what do we have? More time?
Well, let's see. It's 7 minutes, about 7 minutes short of 30 minutes. So.
Okay, I'd like to get into another topic, just to get away from this whole, because it is challenging, and you know. But I wanted to say one more thing first. The people around us are denying their fear. They're trying to hoist that fear on us. I've said this before. And it is, in a way, our fear, but the way we deal with that fear is not just by passively resonating terror. It's by being outraged. When events come into your life that piss you off, that means you're at the point that you're actually moving to liberate yourself. Rage is a sign of an esoteric, of a psychological move toward liberation. And I mean rage and not hatred. Do not be afraid to get pissed off at people, to get pissed off at the ones, for the first time, the psychopaths have revealed themselves. How many people actually get pissed off at bankers? I mean, really visualize the banker and say, okay, you know, MF, mofo, you're going to now face everything you're trying to make me face. You're going to be poor, you're going to be out there, you're going to feel fear, you're going to feel the wrath of the God moving through the people coming to your doorstep. You're going to feel your plans fall apart. You know, And yet the other person says, oh no, that's bad. It's like, come on, man. How can you stand by and watch everybody suffer over here and not get angry? You're not hating the guy. This is a lesson that the person needs to learn, and you're holding it back. Do you know there are spiritual people in the occult movement, pagans, that call themselves white, the witches and stuff like that, that say if somebody has a car accident and is on the street crying for help, you have to turn away or else you're messing with their karma. If you help them, then you're doing their soul a great disservice, and you're being arrogant, and it's black magic. This kind of crap is being promoted out there, and there's people following it because it's easy to feel good about yourself when you actually believe that way. You don't have to help anybody.
When you think you're living in rarefied air.
Exactly. And before you know it, you're dead, choked. And what do these people say? Well, if the whole world then blows up, we'll just go to the next one. If there is no next one, well, we won't know about it, so they win. They're no different than the Christians who want to bring about the apocalypse and think that even if they're not going to be raptured and everything is gone, they're going to be okay. And if it's not okay, they won't know about it. Because it's the psychopath within them that they don't recognize. The one that's actually motivated to believe in all of this crap from the spiritual side, and I'll probably get people on my case about this, is the psychopath. That's the one that's keeping them asleep. That's the one that's telling them they have to be good instead of being real. Because a real person doesn't give a rat's ass about good or evil or anything like that. They trust the natural dynamic of being human, because being human naturally is being spiritual. You can't separate the two. That's where God is found. I agree with you. God's a sadistic bastard. But the God that's a sadistic bastard is not the real one.
No, it's the psychopathically created one.
Exactly. It's the one the religions worship. It's the one the priests keep promoting, and whatever the forms are. And it's the one the psychopaths to which they sacrifice children. And it's the one that the New Agers think is going to take us to dimension floaty, And it's time for the people with guts and with any sense of reality in their souls to stand up from within first. It doesn't mean you have to go out and do something pragmatically because they've set it up so it's very damn difficult. I mean, one of the ways to move through is to admit how difficult it is. And then you go through the phase of despair and whatever and saying, oh no, what am I going to do? But then you say, look, man, it is what it is. Obviously, there's some kind of resource within me and within humanity to be able to deal with this. Obviously, we haven't completely brought it out. Maybe there's hints. Maybe there's aspirations. Maybe our hope in our moments of clarity says, oh, but as long as we say, oh, it's going to happen, don't worry about it, we're not availing, we're not contributing. We're not helping it happen. And if we don't happen, it's not going to be part of our reality, even if it does. That's why I like to tell people, look, man, this planet, and I'm not talking about your soul, because it's very arrogant, in my opinion, for spiritual people to keep talking about their special soul group and, how they came to this planet. Well, how about the planet, the soul of the planet itself? How about the soul of manifestation? How about the goddess that is indigenous in this reality frame and is the very substance of existence? What does she feel? God basically isn't listening to people because he's his own soulmate is calling him. That's what the priority is. And if people find the goddess within themselves without gender roles and through their own truth and honoring their own feelings, then they will find God. And they will find that this is the loving God because there is a plan, and that plan is being put into motion. It's inside you. Go get it.
Yes, it is inside of each of us, and that is where we'll find it. And it also involves our interaction and our relationship to the world and the people around us. You can't be divorced from that.
So I saw this sign and I took it to mean 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we can
sign.
go over some. I did the one that I put up yesterday with Katie West. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. That was an hour, but we initially didn't know that was going to be put up online. But it turned out that we did. But normally I'd like to keep it a manageable half hour for conversations, and for myself I try to keep it between 15 and 20 minutes.
No, I agree, and you've helped me a lot with this to try to condense my thoughts a little bit and make them a little bit more presentable. But anything else I might say at this point is anticlimactic. I know we repeat ourselves over and over again with these things. But each time we repeat ourselves, the words may be the same or similar, but the energy has a variation on a theme. And I encourage people, once again, even though I've said it before, listen to the energy. I'm not a philosopher, I'm not an intellectual. I basically use words as carriers for something else that's difficult to convey. And thankfully, even the electronic medium can convey it. Most of the crazy blessings and cursings that I've on the cult sites that I've experienced were done actually online through the internet. They were. But there are many things that we're going to discover, and it's hope is something that requires nourishment. It doesn't live in a vacuum. If you want hope, it's not going to work. You're the one that needs to keep cultivating it through truth, through feedback, through how you interpret what you see and feel. And there's many things that are not going to make sense to the eyes and the cognitive mind, but they make sense to the gut and the heart. And the psychopaths have inverted everything for us, and maybe they're giving us a hint. It's time to put our brains in right here. Instead of thinking from up here, we can use this as our servant instead of our master. That's what I hope I am doing in this, but I believe people are still so conditioned into the form of the communication and all of that it's difficult to see. Unless I'm sitting here crying or screaming or whatever, I'm not emotional, to a lot of people. Unless I blabber and use tweets or whatever, this guy is an intellectual, whatever. Forget about that. It's almost insulting for me to be called an intellectual, because I know that living in my head is not the solution. That is not the impression I'd like to give. So people, there is hope, but it's not something somebody else can tell you to make it true. You can find it within, through the despair. Everything is a lesson. We can get out of the courtroom. Maybe, even in your life, it's so interesting that when you were talking about your court cases and all of that, other people were saying, somebody was channeling, it's time to get out of the courtroom and move into the classroom, because we're so full of judges and juries and legalities and laws. It's not just in the social system. Maybe that's necessary there, but I'm talking about the personal gut and heart level interactions between us. It's not just words when you say it's a school, and when it's a school or a lesson, it's not the school system. There is no teacher out there making us memorize and whipping us when we don't memorize. We're not being conditioned. It's the opposite. This is a deconditioning class. We're in a cult called the Matrix, and we're being, radical intervention. And if you've ever seen anybody in a clinic that undertaking radical intervention, it's not pretty. They're living in their own little world of being attacked by everybody, and maybe sometimes, they are, but the intention behind it, the nature, not even the intention, but the nature of the process is we are so programmed and screwed in that way that we're experiencing a nightmarish radical intervention by the cosmos. The T's that you keep talking about, I see them here. They're here, they're embedded, they're one with us. They're not going to come out from the outside. It's a matter of the spirit voice you keep hearing. It is, divine, but it's also extraterrestrial. It's that kind of wisdom that's there, but it's working through you. And you have more strength because of it. And I urge everybody to open to that, because that's how we do create reality, by opening up to a possibility and then daring to move into it, even though it may seem like crap at first. As long as our hearts feel right about it, march on, so to speak. Okay, I think I'm done for today.
Thank you, Aristo. Till next week, you have a great week, and we'll talk again.
The same to you. Rock on.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.